On this Tuesday night, no to a public inquiry into foreign interference. David Johnston's long-awaited conclusions.
A public review of classified intelligence simply cannot be done.
His reasons, what he's recommending instead, and the potential repercussions. Alberta's election during a critical economic time.
There is a lot at stake.
What's pushing business away from the province. A cold case in Quebec cracked. How police finally figured out who killed this teenager in 1975. Hi! And one family's fight so their little boy can hear.
Hearing shouldn't be for the privileged.
Global National with Dawna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Former Governor General David Johnston has ruled out the need for a public inquiry into foreign interference in Canada's democratic process. Johnston, who was asked by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to investigate whether an inquiry is necessary, has concluded there is no question foreign governments are attempting to influence political candidates and voters, and more needs to be done to combat it. But he says because so much of the information is top secret, there's no way to air it in public.
The intelligence I have reviewed is and must remain secret. As a result, the reality is any credible public inquiry would not be public at all.
In his report, Johnston also concluded, I have not found examples of ministers, the Prime Minister, or their offices knowingly ignoring intelligence, advice, or recommendations on foreign interference or being driven by partisan considerations in dealing with these issues. And he addressed the leaks of classified information to the media that he says are destructive and dangerous. And he says it is a matter of urgency that the leakers be caught. Citing unnamed national security sources, Global News and the Globe and Mail have reported on a range of influence and interference operations by the Chinese government, particularly during the 2019 and 2021 elections. Johnston has spent the last 2 months reviewing top secret documents and interviewing politicians, including the Prime Minister, who said today he will abide by the recommendations. Our coverage tonight begins with David Akin in Ottawa. David.
Well, Dawna, former Governor General David Johnston said he started his work thinking he would recommend a public inquiry into foreign interference. But after reviewing dozens of top secret memos on the topic, he concluded a public inquiry was neither needed nor would one even be possible.
A separate public inquiry will simply not deliver the level of transparency and urgency Canadians expect.
Johnston was also asked to determine if the Prime Minister or any ministers were negligent in failing to act on allegations of foreign interference. His conclusion? They were not.
I have found no examples of ministers, the Prime Minister, or their offices knowingly or negligently failing to act on intelligence, advice, or recommendations on the issues I have investigated related to the 2019 and 2021 elections.
Johnston's harshest judgment was for Canada's security agencies and their failure to manage and share information in a way that the important stuff got to the desks of ministers and the Prime Minister.
We have much to do to be much more effective, much more professional, much more harmonized.
Johnston also notes that he would not have produced his report addressing these important issues had it not been for reporting by Global News and the Globe and Mail, reporting that was often based on intelligence leaked from CSIS and other national security sources. Johnston said those media reports created what he called, quote, misapprehensions, because he said the leaked information was taken out of context. The specific instances of interference, Johnston said, are less concerning than some media reporting has suggested, and in some cases, the story is quite different. For example, Johnston referred to a report by Global News alleging that Toronto MP Han Dong counseled a Chinese diplomat to delay the release of the two Michaels. Johnston said that allegation is false, and it's an allegation Dong had denied. In his statement, Dong said he felt vindicated by Johnston's report. Johnston came to his conclusion after reviewing the same intelligence report the Prime Minister saw. Global News has not confirmed the contents of that intelligence report or whether it contained leaked information provided to Global News from two national security sources. Johnston confirmed what Dong said at the time. Dong did speak to the Chinese diplomat about the Michaels case, but Dong said he was advocating for their release. That was a conversation the PMO never knew about until the Global News report. Dong has filed a lawsuit against Global News and its parent company, Chorus Entertainment, in response to the reporting. Johnston is also the latest authority to certify the validity of the 2019 and 2021 elections, that despite attempts by foreign states to interfere, none have had any impact on electoral outcomes. Dawna.
Okay, David, Akin, thanks. Well, this has not put an end to calls for a public inquiry. The leader of the NDP still says one is needed. The leader of the Conservatives, who refused to meet David Johnston, continues to say Johnston can't be trusted to assess the Liberal government's response to allegations of foreign interference.
He put his friend, his ski buddy, his cottage neighbor, and Trudeau Foundation member, David Johnston, in charge of today's whitewash attempt. Conservatives are not buying it.
A public inquiry is necessary. I will make that very clear. And I'll make it clear to the Prime Minister that we're going to use all the tools that we have at our disposal to continue to push for one at the federal level.
And with me now is our Ottawa Bureau Chief, Mercedes Stephenson. Mercedes, where does this leave the Prime Minister?
Well, Dawna, it's not what the opposition or some former senior national security officials wanted to hear today, but the Prime Minister says there will be no public inquiry.
I committed to listening very carefully and abiding by the recommendations that the former Governor General made, and he explained and justified his thought processes by it, and we will be following his recommendations.
Mr. Trudeau maintains that his government takes foreign interference seriously and has taken action on it. But the Liberals still have not introduced a foreign agents registry or duplicated tools that Canada's Five Eyes allies have put into place to counter foreign interference. And national security sources who came forward to Global News said they spoke out because they felt the government wasn't listening to the intelligence community's warnings.
Mercedes, the opposition isn't going to drop this. How politically vulnerable are the Liberals now?
Well, Dawna, there's no question today's decision gives the opposition fodder to continue to attack the Prime Minister. A recommendation for a public inquiry would have neutralized some of those attacks. Instead, the Liberal government will have to contend with allegations they're covering things up. However, it does also allow Mr. Trudeau to stick to his talking points and Mr. Johnston's recommendations. For voters, it might be a bit of an ink blot test on how they feel about the government 8 years in. Canadians typically don't vote on national security issues, but successive scandals can take a toll in voters' decisions.
Okay, Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thank you. Now to Alberta's election. Advance voting began today for that election, which takes place next Monday. UCP leader Danielle Smith cast her ballot today, as did Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley. If you believe the opinion polls, the race appears to be a tight one. The two leaders have very different visions for how to make Alberta's economy prosper. It's still affected by the boom and bust of oil prices, and business leaders increasingly believe now is the time for the province to diversify. Here's Heather Yourex-West.
It's called Nightingale, a fantasy video game title coming soon from Inflection Games.
We are a studio that started in July of 2018. There was 4 of us originally. We're up to about 90 here in Edmonton now.
The interactive and digital technology sector is a burgeoning industry, a perfect way for Alberta's energy-heavy economy to diversify. Except what began as a good news story for Alberta has become a story of opportunity lost. Inflection's last 40 hires have been based in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal.
We've decided to grow outside of Alberta simply because there's those governments and the tax policies that they have in place in other provinces are much more favorable to growing a game studio. So what are you working on, Phil?
Nye says a 2019 decision by the United Conservative government to kill an NDP-era tax credit for the industry saw the studio's plan to grow in Edmonton screech to a halt.
This is a pivotal time for Alberta. There is a lot at stake.
The NDP is promising to cut Alberta's small business tax, but plans to pay for many of its platform promises with a 3% hike to the province's corporate tax rate, bringing it from 8 to 11%. Still the lowest in Canada, though enough to kill investment, according to the UCP. Calgary's Chamber of Commerce says the next government needs to focus on targeted tax credits, especially when it comes to clean tech.
The reality is we are competing with the United States with the Inflation Reduction Act.
Now law.
Signed last August, the act offers billions of dollars in subsidies to promote the growth of biofuels, hydrogen, and carbon capture and storage in the United States. If Canada's energy sector wants to compete, business leaders say both the federal and Alberta government will have to step up hard.
And in fact, as we speak, a lot of Canadian clean tech companies are pivoting towards U.S. opportunities because the IRA gives such clear and low-risk incentives.
The world as you know it teeters on the brink.
Just like the characters in Nightingale, Albertans are navigating a critical time, and the next government will have to move carefully to prepare for the road ahead. Heather, Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
The federal government is revamping airport security measures. A new verified traveler program involves dedicated security screening lines at 6 airports, including Toronto and Vancouver. Eligible passengers, including Nexus members, will no longer have to take their shoes off, and they can keep laptops and liquids in their bags. The program will be gradually introduced between June 7th and 21st. A Montreal murder mystery dating back decades finally solved. That's coming up. Plus, fresh optimism in Alberta's firefight. Now to Alberta's wildfires. There's new satellite imagery that shows how much smoke is blanketing not just the province, but spreading across North America, some of it reaching into the United States as far as New York City. That is according to the American National Weather Service. There are some positive signs, though. There are fewer fires burning, and rainy weather is moving into some areas, raising hopes for firefighters and residents who had to flee their homes. Neetu Garcha is in Fox Creek, Alberta, hearing from locals and crews. Neetu.
Dawna, this is the second day there has been heavy rainfall here in Fox Creek, finally, after nearly 3 weeks of tinder dry conditions. The local fire chief here says members have been so happy at one point they laid down in the parking lot of the department just to soak in this help from Mother Nature in what they call an extremely challenging and exhausting firefight. Near Fox Creek, firefighters are gaining ground. Like most areas of the province, they've now seen rain, lower temperatures, and higher humidity.
We were just worried it might spark up again, but I'm pretty hopeful, pretty confident this will be the trigger point to bring people back.
Fox Creek Fire Chief Brian Davidson says once this rain gauge reaches a certain point, lifting the now nearly 3-week-long evacuation order will be possible.
And we're hoping for at least 25 mils of rain before we can start considering bringing people back. So I just want to make sure the town is safe. I want to make sure I can bring my children back here.
For volunteers like him, fighting to protect this community is personal. He grew up in Fox Creek and says it's been a difficult few weeks for many.
It's an emotional roller coaster is what it is.
Especially for evacuees like Carol Scobie, who's lived in Fox Creek for more than 40 years. She says the support from strangers has been overwhelming.
The love, caring, and compassion, very much so. There isn't anybody that you can go into town here and they don't give you a hug.
She says seeing this rainfall also helps bring hope.
We are so happy that this rain has come. Firefighters can concentrate on the containment lines and not chasing these wildfires that are popping up.
About 2 hours away in Yellowhead County, fire officials say the rain has suppressed fire activity, but they're not letting their guards down.
Unfortunately, on the weekend, we are expecting an uptrend of temperature. And so we may get into something similar to last week. But now that the grass is green and the trees are leafed out, we don't expect the same conditions as we did 2 weeks ago for sure.
After being grounded for a few days because of thick smoke,
this is a co-pilot seat.
This private helicopter pilot contracted by Alberta Wildfire was able to get back up in the air to help map the fire perimeter.
Watching the fire come so close to people's homes and their animals and wildlife too, and watching them get confused and run in the wrong direction, it's tough, it's hard.
Back in Fox Creek, Fire Chief Davidson says especially with temperatures expected to stay low throughout the week, he's confident about his members' ability to drive out the fire threat and welcome residents back home soon. The fire chief says flames are still within about 4 kilometers of Fox Creek, and even if they do feel comfortable allowing residents back home, this wildfire will be in their backyard for months to come. Across Alberta, provincial officials say this shift in weather could be the turning point in an early yet already unprecedented wildfire season. Dawna?
All right, meet through Garcha and Fox Creek, Alberta. Thank you. Search resumed ahead a new investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. In Washington, a teenager is in custody accused of trying to drive through security barriers near the White House. This U-Haul truck tried to ram through the barriers last night at Lafayette Square, just outside the White House grounds. No one was hurt. A 19-year-old man was arrested and faces multiple charges, including threatening to kill, kidnap, or inflict harm on the president. Police say evidence collected from the truck included a Nazi flag. Police have begun searching a reservoir in Portugal in the long-running investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. The British child vanished while on vacation with her family 16 years ago. Portuguese, German, and British officers are scouring an area in the Algarve, 50 kilometers from Praia de Luz, where the 3-year-old went missing in 2007. It's the first search for her in Portugal in nearly a decade and was requested by German police, who believe a suspect in the case was in the area around the time the toddler vanished. 45-year-old German national Christian Bruckner, a convicted rapist who is in jail in Germany, was formally declared a suspect in the McCann case last year. Police in Quebec say new technology helped them solve a mystery that's endured almost 50 years. Montreal teenager Sharon Pryor was out meeting friends when she disappeared in 1975. 2 days later, she was found dead after being beaten and raped. Now, as Mike Armstrong explains, what was a cold case for decades has a resolution.
Ready? There were both smiles and tears from a family that wondered if this day would ever come. Sharon Pryor's little sisters say they and their mother, even 5 decades later, are still grieving.
Life has not been easy for us since then, but Sharon has given us strength for the past 48 years, and especially today.
The Pryor family, back in March of 1975, lived here in Montreal's Point St. Charles. Sharon was 16 years old and headed out on a Saturday evening to meet friends. It should have been a 2-minute walk. Her body was found 4 days later in Longueuil, about 10 kilometers away. She'd been beaten and raped. Over the years, there were tips and leads from time to time. All told, there were 122 suspects, but each was a dead end until this month, when police visited the family to tell them the murder had been solved.
It was a very emotional moment, lots of laughs, of cries.
Now, Longueuil police held on to the clothes from the crime scene. Back in '75, it was just for blood type. But keeping the clothes is what helped close the case.
We're not lucky, we just did our job.
Police in August of 2019 were able to pull new DNA off the clothes. They then submitted that to genealogy websites and got back possible family names. A little digging from there turned up a suspect. American Franklin Romine died in 1982. He was buried in West Virginia. Earlier this month, his body was exhumed and the DNA taken from his bones matched to Sharon's killer. Romine had been in and out of jail for serious crimes, including rape. He was also back and forth to Montreal. He was living in Quebec when Sharon disappeared, but was never a suspect.
We love you, Sharon. Now may you truly rest in peace.
The family says there is a closure, knowing Romine can't kill again. There's also hope for other cold cases. Longueuil police say they expect the same techniques to help solve another this year. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Clinical costs next in Ontario families' financial fight for better funding for hearing devices. Canada has a wide range of publicly funded healthcare services, but there are more which aren't fully covered than you might think. And some families only discover that in their time of need. Catherine Ward spoke with one family hoping to get better funding for hearing devices in Ontario as they face a lifetime of financial struggle.
Grayson Hall knows what the rain sounds like on the steps of Ontario's legislature.
Grayson?
And it's a very big deal.
He was born profoundly deaf due to genetics that we didn't know that we carried.
Cochlear implants gave Grayson the gift of sound.
Grayson!
Hi! When Erica got pregnant again, tests showed their unborn child would be just like Big Brother, unable to hear.
Give baby brother kisses.
You expect your child's life to be one way, and it's not.
In Ontario, an initial set of cochlear implants and the surgery to fit them is covered by the province, but the devices don't last forever. Sometimes they need to be replaced or upgraded.
The big ticket item is the actual external processors.
A single device would cost $12,660, according to one quote Erica received. Grayson needs two, pushing the price above $25,000 before coverage kicks in. It's likely his little brother will need the same. The family doesn't have private insurance. Officials say Ontario will cover up to 75% of replacement speech processors through an assistive devices program. However, there is a cap.
It works out to be about $5,444 that's covered through ADP. And then the rest is out of patient pocket, usually.
Coverage isn't equal across Canada. Saskatchewan's copay program means a family only pays $840 per replacement device. In Nova Scotia, the government has been funding replacements for those in need over the past several years.
Families can find that to be a bit of a shock when it comes around to an upgrade.
So Erica and her family advocate for change on those rainy steps, praying for a brighter future.
We need help affording it because hearing shouldn't be for the privileged.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Dawna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Beaumaris Marina in Muskoka Lakes, Ontario. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.